All right, everybody. I'm Jasmin Dodson with Dodson Legal Group, and I am here with Chandler Ross. They are, in fact, two different people. So we've got Tony Ross here and Brent Chandler, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hey guys, my name is Tony Ross, and yes, like Jasmin said, I am the second part of Chandler Ross. This is my partner, Brent Chandler. We've been doing personal injury here, I guess, collectively for about 35 years now, close to 40, 35 to 40. We're right here in Denton, so we're local. If anybody needs anything, we strive to be the local go-to attorney. So we're glad to join Jasmin here today. Being a great estate planning attorney, we always want to work with local folks. So we're glad to be here.
Hello, guys and ladies. I'm Brent Chandler, the Chandler part of Chandler Ross. I've been doing personal injury basically my entire career. I've done both the plaintiff side and the defense side. Like Tony said, we're here to help you here in Denton County. So give us a shout.
All right. So I just got a couple talking points that I want to talk with you guys about so that our viewers and listeners can kind of understand what is a personal injury attorney.
So a personal injury attorney is somebody that, when people get into an accident or they're hurt on the job, oftentimes they just have no idea what the process is, where to turn, what to do, who to make their claim with. And so what we always tell people is that if you get into an accident, if you're hurt, if you are just not sure whether or not you need a personal injury attorney, reach out to one, because we will explain to you what we do. Specifically, what we're going to do is help you navigate through that claims process. When you make a personal injury claim, you're going to be dealing with the other sides, the at-fault party's insurance company.
Oh, yeah.
And their job is to obviously pay as little or not pay anything at all. And so if you go at that alone, if you try to work these things by yourselves, it can be extremely difficult, extremely complex. People get taken advantage of. And so personal injury attorneys are there to help you navigate through that process, help you get to the doctors, the providers, get you better, and then help you hopefully get compensated. Oftentimes that depends upon how much of a policy, how much insurance that we have to deal with, but we're there to help guide you through that process. And the good thing is, I know personal injury attorneys work on a contingency fee basis. Yeah. So if it's something where we put time into and we realize that, hey, we just, in this case, we may not be able to help you a whole lot, or there's not an avenue for recovery, there's no real risk in contacting a PI attorney, because you're not going to be paying us an hourly fee to do investigations or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So there's not really a big commitment on the front end, but it's really any time that you're dealing with any type of insurance company. So if an insurance company is calling you or sending you letters and trying to get your statements, and you're like, should I answer these questions? Should I not answer these questions? What information should I provide? That's where you want to go talk to a personal injury attorney.
Absolutely. After an accident, we always highly advise that everybody politely decline to talk with an insurance company.
Yeah.
As I've always said, the adjusters are generally very, very nice. They're going to reach out. They're going to say, hey, I want to make sure that you're okay. Usually they'll offer some money, but they've got the insurance company's interest at hand. They're not there to represent you. And so, yes, reach out to that PI attorney who can advise you. And again, we're working on a contingency fee, so it's not going to be anything to where you have to worry about spending money up front if there's nothing to be gained later on.
Yeah, and it's not like police officers have to give you the Miranda warnings and say you have the right to remain silent. Insurance companies don't have to tell you that. Right?
Yeah. And sometimes police attorneys or police officers don't even do that. But as we all know, yeah. But with insurance adjusters, absolutely, everything is recorded when they call you, and so they can actually get verbal settlements over the phone. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think, well, if I'm going to settle a case, it's got to be something in writing. I maybe have to sign an affidavit or something. There is case law out there where it specifically says if the insurance company has the right verbiage and they've got you on a recorded call and they say, okay, we're going to offer this. There's an offer and acceptance, then that case can be settled over the phone. Yeah. So it's extremely dangerous, extremely risky, especially for the general public who doesn't deal with attorneys on a daily basis. Before I went to law school and I was a normal college kid, I would have had no idea. If some insurance company called and said, hey, I'll offer you $5,000, that sounded like a ton of money to me until a month later when I went and got an MRI and I realized I was going to need back surgery or at the minimum physical therapy for the next 6 months. And I was going to be out 20, 30, 40,000 bucks in medical bills.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's just something that, we highly advise people to politely decline to speak to the insurance company. Just tell them, hey, I'm going to have my attorney reach out to you.
Right.
They hear this 24/7. It's not going to be any kind of surprise to them. And then reach out to a personal injury attorney. Even if it's not us, reach out to somebody that you know and trust and just get their opinion. Almost everybody has a friend of a friend who says, yes, I know this person. I can refer you to somebody that just will give you an honest evaluation of what you're dealing with.
Okay. And it's not just car accidents, right? There's other types of personal injury other than car accidents.
Yeah. So when you do PI, car accidents, I would say just make up probably 70, 80% of your cases just because we're in DFW. And so we've got 5, 6, 7 million people, probably closer to 6, 7 and the whole Metroplex.
Right.
And so there are literally hundreds of accidents a day. And so
people would rather hit you than miss their exit.
Right. They're struggling to get to work on time. Yes, and absolutely. They're texting, they're doing all kinds of things. And so yes, you get tons and tons of car and trucking accidents, mostly passenger car, but you do get the big trucking accidents as well. But yes, there's premises liability cases, slip and fall type cases. We had a case where a gentleman was just sitting at a cigar bar. And this was about a year ago, Brent, that we signed this case, or a year and a half. And the sign had just been installed on this cigar bar. And he's just sitting out there on the patio and the sign comes loose and falls and just bust him in the head.
Goodness.
I mean, he's lucky to be alive. He's lucky it didn't hit him a little bit differently, but just got a huge gash on the top of his head. Had to have surgeries and we're dealing with. So that's a common example of premises liability. Obviously everybody knows the slip and fall cases where you slip in a Walmart or something like that. Sometimes those are legitimate. Sometimes they're valid. Sometimes they're total BS. Right. And so we have to be honest with clients and say, this case is probably not going to play out for you. Or this case, yes, you do have a valid concern, a valid claim that we can represent you on. So you've got those types. You've got workers' compensation type claims in workplace injuries. Now, if an employer has workers' compensation in Texas, then the injured person has to go through work comp.
Okay, that's a little bit different than your traditional motor vehicle accident. And if you get injured or someone gets injured during work or while they're on the course of doing work, while they're at the job, then that's a whole different animal.
Yes. Yeah.
In fact, they're barred from suing their employer if your employer has work comp.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to get your treatment through work comp at that point. So it is significantly different. But there are non-subscribers, that employers that don't subscribe to workers' comp, that you need a personal injury attorney to make your claim because they don't have insurance and you can sue them directly. And in fact, they lose a lot of common law defenses by being a non-subscriber. And so those cases are, liability-wise, are fairly easy for us to prove.
Okay. So if you get injured in the workplace, you still want to reach out to a personal injury attorney to kind of help you navigate through that process of workers' comp.
And to figure out whether or not your employer actually subscribes or doesn't. And so, yes, 100%. Even if they subscribe to work comp, you can still treat through work comp and challenge some of their findings if they say you're not really hurt or whatever. So there are specialized attorneys that do just workers' compensation claims. A PI attorney will do the non-subscriber claims.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I was going to get to. Brent just made the point very well. There are specific workers' comp attorneys. And so if somebody comes to us and we do a little bit of investigation, we realize that, ABC Corporation, where you got hurt, is a subscriber. In other words, they subscribe to workers' comp. Then we can help get that person to a work comp attorney and make sure that workers' comp is treating them fairly and taking care of them. On the other hand, if they are what he said, a non-subscriber, they do not have workers' compensation, then basically you file that claim with the company. And so it goes to the company's insurance and it's something absolutely that a PI attorney would handle.
Okay, definitely. And so since we're kind of talking about different types of personal injury, and I know you guys don't do medical malpractice, but it's such a niche area that I think we got to talk about it so that our viewers can kind of understand the limitations with a medical malpractice. And for people that don't know, a medical malpractice claim is if you are injured while you're undergoing some type of medical procedure. That's kind of the easiest way to kind of explain what a medical malpractice is, because it's different if you're injured by a doctor or a nurse or if you're at a hospital. And it's a completely different animal because the statute of limitations, meaning the time that you have to file a claim, is shorter than a typical personal injury, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, one of the common examples is the doc left a sponge, in me. And so, yes, with med mal, there are very specific rules and very specific procedures that you have to follow. Non-economic damages are generally capped. And so what we generally do is we tell people, come to us if you have something, but probably 95% of those cases, we're going to refer out to somebody that, I've got a network of about 10 to 12 medical malpractice specific attorneys in DFW that can make sure that they're doing those things right and they're doing them correctly. And there's just so many complex rules and regulations regarding how the claims have to be filed. Like Brent said, I mean, you have to talk to an expert before you even file the claim and get a doc to say that, yes, this procedure was done incorrectly.
Okay, so you're saying that before you even file a lawsuit against the doctor or the medical professional, you have to get someone else to say that what they did was wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't say not necessarily before you file the lawsuit, but you're going to want to have your ducks in a row. And so, you're going to want to have somebody that's able to reach out to an expert that they deal with regularly and say, yes, I can look at that procedure, determine that it was done incorrectly or not with the proper protocol, and I am willing to go on the record and testify and be your expert throughout this case. And again, that's just something that you need to get lined up fairly quickly. So if it's something, that does happen, hopefully nothing like this happens to you guys, but stuff unfortunately does, at least reach out to somebody. Again, if you reach out to us, we're probably going to assist you in finding somebody that specializes in med mal.
Okay. Now let's segue into talking about wrongful death, because as a probate attorney, sometimes I do get calls from people that say, I had my loved one pass away in the hospital, and I think it was because of something that a doctor or the hospital did. They didn't, provide the proper care. Does this wrongful death kind of fall under the?
Yeah, that would typically still be a medical malpractice claim. We've got several wrongful death and survivorship actions going right now. More in they're generally commercial trucking accidents and things like that. But yes, that would fall under the medical malpractice, and that's where they would need to talk to somebody like you, who does the wills and trusts and estate planning and things like that, and make sure. One of the difficult things about our business is that people generally don't realize that they're going to need an attorney until like that last second that it happened.
Right.
Nobody says, okay, I'm going to be in an accident next month, so let's start looking at PI attorneys. Nobody says, okay, well, I might have a loved one go through a horrible accident or procedure, and all of a sudden I need to look at setting up my estate and make sure that my planning is done correctly. And do I want to trust? Do I want to will? What's best for me? It's a lot of times it's something where it's like all of a sudden sprung upon you as a person or a family. And so it can be very, very nerve wracking. That's where we just emphasize, try to find somebody that, that is local to your area. Talk with your friends, your family, attorneys you may know, because a lot of times, especially in a county like Denton, it's not super huge. The attorneys all kind of know each other, and they know who the good ones to turn to are, and the ones that they can trust, and the ones that they can really rely upon.
Yeah, definitely. It's very important. I preach this all the time as an estate planning attorney. You want to have your power of attorney. At least if you're over the age of 18, you should have a power of attorney, a medical power of attorney, because if something happens, and you need to hire a personal injury attorney, or you need someone to hire a personal injury attorney for you because you lose capacity. You guys work with that too. If there's somebody that, hey, someone's been in an accident and they can't sign the retainer agreement, they can't sign off on the claim. You can deal with that.
Like, normally it's a family member, and we sign them up as next to friend, ANF, and then we can proceed that way. You can do that with an estate too, for somebody that actually has passed away. They'll set up an estate after they passed away, and then the representative will probably likely be a family member. But we can bring a claim as next to friend.
Okay. Well, yeah,
attorney.
I 100% agree with you. Once you get to that adult age, get everything. And I know it's so easy to say, and so many people put it off. I mean, we put it off for a long time, but it is so important to get your estate planning, powers of attorney, medical powers of attorney, everything that you deal with. This isn't my specialty. Get that set up early, because generally it's really not that expensive. I mean, when you're talking about, okay, this could really save me thousands, if not, far more than that, if something happens and I need somebody there, or God forbid, if you have children, make sure that it's set up, if nothing else, just for them, so they don't have to deal with the complications of not knowing what to do, not having anything in place.
Yeah.
If I've contacted an estate planning attorney, and say I've contacted you and you've set everything up for me, and again, something happens to me, then my wife and my kids can simply give you a call and say, okay, what do we need to do? Where do we need to go?
Yeah. In fact, we had a wrongful death case, and he did not have any sort of will, power of attorney, or anything. And so we asked the probate court, to do an independent administration of his estate, meaning the family member could be the representative. Well, the court didn't like that and wanted to be a dependent administration, meaning he needed court approval. If he would have had his ducks in a row and had the paperwork, it would have streamlined the process, cost him less on the end, meaning his family would have recovered more. So,
Right. Because in a dependent administration, just from my experience, it can be 3 to 5 times more expensive than an independent administration, because this means that instead of your family deciding with the personal injury attorney that this is a reasonable settlement and we should accept it, you have to get court approval on everything. So you have to bring it before the judge and let the judge say, is this sound reasonable or not? So you've got 2 judges involved, 2 attorneys, when it could be something that your family members could just resolve with the expertise of the attorneys.
Yeah. A lot of times you get guardians involved as well, and so then they've got a job to do if there's young children.
Right.
Right.
And it's not horrible in certain times to have guardians appointed, but you want to have control over the guardians that make the decisions for your kids, instead of having a court appoint another attorney to be the person to make the decisions what they believe that your children should have during a personal injury or wrongful death type situation. So if you already have these things in place, you know who you want to be in charge of your kids' person and their finances, and then let them work with the attorneys involved if unfortunately something happens.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you did a video that I saw, and you did red flags to hiring an attorney, and I loved that, because I think everyone should know what am I looking for when I'm hiring an attorney? What are those red flags?
Well, I can tell you, okay, personally, when I go out and if I need an attorney, one of the first things that I want to look for is somebody that is local to my area, somebody that is, that knows the courts, the other attorneys, kind of the players in our area. 2, I want to make sure that this is somebody who's not what I call a high volume law firm. And I'm not going to dog any attorneys out there or any firms or anything like that.
Not at all.
But there are some firms and whose business model is more about just getting as many people in as they can and getting that process as quickly as possible. What I always tell people is that, I would look for a more tailored, narrowed, focused law firm that doesn't take in hundreds of clients a month, so that they're going to have the time, the resources, the dedication to put forth into your case to make sure that they're handling it correctly. What I've said before is, sometimes you call a firm and you're talking to a secretary's secretary,
right?
To get an appointment set up for the next several days or a week later. And I know this because so many people call us and they're like, we've hired XYZ law firm because we saw them on TV or we heard them on an ad and we thought that they were going to be the best because they were the biggest or whatever. but we're having a hard time reaching even our attorney to talk about our case.
Yeah.
Even a paralegal just to assist us with general questions. And so I always focus on finding an attorney that is not overwhelmed as far as the number of cases that they bring in, somebody who's going to be able to focus on your case, put a lot of time and effort into it, somebody who's local, and just somebody that you trust.
Right.
I tell folks, and this is back before COVID, this, most clients would come in and meet with us. I think like 90% of our clients would come in, sit down, face to face, and meet with us before they retained us, which I loved, because that way they could see our office, they could see the firms, they could see how we run our staff and our law firm,
right.
And they could determine whether or not it's something that they felt comfortable with. It's so easy for any attorney to hop on a phone call or even a Zoom call if they're at home, and it's hard for the clients out there, the general public, to determine, okay, is this firm going to be a good fit? And that's kind of how it's gone post-COVID, is everybody just wants to do things via DocuSign and telephone and all that kind of thing. So really try to focus on finding somebody that you feel comfortable with. Don't hesitate to ask, hey, can I please just come in and meet you? Some people are just too busy or they're just not comfortable with that. That's fine. But do your research and make sure that it's a firm, an attorney that you feel comfortable working with, because it is, whether it's an estate planning, a personal injury matter, or any other matter for that purpose. I mean, it's going to be something where you're generally going to be working with that attorney for several months, if not years.
Right. And I think it's also important to discuss the fact that the clients are the one that hold the power in whether they want to retain an attorney and whether they want to let an attorney go.
Yeah.
So if you are with a law firm or you're being represented and you don't feel like you're getting the adequate representation, you can always go seek out other law firms and get a second opinion and even terminate that relationship.
Yeah. I tell every new client that it's totally in their control. It's that they can cancel that contract at any time for any reason. They don't have to have a reason. So she's right. It's totally under the client's control.
And kind of what I've told people in the past, I've made videos about this. If you're having some difficulty in communication with your attorney, first try to resolve it, because that's generally the easiest thing. I mean, sometimes it's just I'm so sorry. For some reason, something got, turned around, twisted here, and things can be resolved. Absolutely. So I would reach out to your attorney and try to fix. I'm not advocating that anybody that just has one disagreement go hire somebody else.
No.
But know that, yes, like you said, you're exactly right. It is up to the client on, one, who they retain, and then two, if they keep that law firm on retainer, if they keep them on their case. If they're not happy with the way that something's going, they can absolutely make that switch if they feel like that's in their best interest.
Okay, let me see. I deal with this a lot in probate and estate planning, community property versus separate property. It's also, it's not just a purely family law issue. So let's talk about, what are proceeds from a personal injury claim? What are those?
Separate property.
They are separate property, non-taxable separate property.
That's right. Except in the non-taxable, except in certain circumstances, like where you're getting money for lost wages and other things. We would always advise, obviously, that you talk with your tax attorney.
Always.
But yes, generally separate property, non-tax. So if you're getting something like that, yes, work with your PI attorney, but also, work with your estate planning attorney in determining how best to invest that money, or where to put that money, or what to do with it. Do I just go throw it in a checking account? Generally, that's probably not the best thing. And that's what they can reach out to folks like you about and figure out, how do I maximize this money?
So if you're in a married relationship, one spouse gets into a personal injury situation, they receive benefits from that. That's their separate property. And then if they take that separate property and they put it in a joint account, that's called commingling. And that then turns it into community property. So it's just something important, because even with estate planning and probate, separate property and community property are dealt with differently as it goes to your beneficiaries if you don't have a proper plan in place.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about, just for the general public, what do you do if you get into a car accident? What's the first thing that you do?
So, okay, I've made several blogs and talked to several folks about this. And so, what I always tell people is one, uh, make every effort to get the police out there. A lot of times you'll call the police, you'll call 911, and they'll say, "Well, are you hurt?" Because if not, we don't have the time or the resources to send somebody out. If there is a chance that you are hurt, that you are injured, insist that they please come out and make a report, because that third party, non-interested, expert officer, and I use expert in kind of a loose term, but somebody who is he or she is at least trained to look at an accident site and determine what they believe happened. And that can be so crucial when you're trying to talk with an insurance adjuster and establish clear liability. In other words, it was the other person's fault that this accident happened. Without a police report, it's just he said versus she said.
Right.
With a police report, you've got Officer Jones, who came out to the scene, and she determined that, yes, based upon two witnesses' statements and what I can tell happened here from my experience, we're almost sure that it's the other person's fault, and they will generally assign what they call contributing factors to the accident to one or both parties. And so if you've got those contributing factors assigned to that other party, that essentially establishes the fact that they are liable for that accident. So that's number one, is get the police out there.
Let me just on that. You said if you feel like you've been hurt, but sometimes, and in my experience in dealing with my background in personal injury and insurance defense, sometimes people don't necessarily know how hurt they are when it happens. Yeah. So you could say, "No, I'm fine. I feel fine" in the moment, but then the next couple days you could start having that neck pain and that back pain. So even if you there's some property damage, it should be important.
Very, very, very valid point, because I'd say more likely than not, if it's a soft tissue type injury, then your adrenaline's going to be going so fast. It's not till a day or two or longer than that you start realizing, okay, that little pinched pain in my neck is not going away. Or my lower back, which was a little bit sore at the accident scene, is now getting even worse.
Yeah.
And so you may have a herniated disc, or you may have something that's going on that needs addressing. And so I 100% agree with that statement. The problem in these big cities is that officers are tied up with anything and everything. And so again, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, but just politely insist, "Please, I need somebody out here to come out here, assess the situation. I think it's very possible I might be injured." And like you said, with the property damage, that can come into play there too, because it can assist in getting that liability determined so that they can get their car fixed.
Yeah, we hear it all the time that the police didn't come out because I didn't know if I was hurt. So, generically, tell them you're hurt. And the police will come out. They have to they have to respond to the accident scene if somebody complains of an injury. And if you're not hurt that bad, that's fine. But just to get them out there, tell them you're hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I've always said, okay, if you're going 1 mile per hour in the Starbucks line and somebody, bumps you and literally, your coffee doesn't even spill, that's one thing. But if you're out on the roads and you're going 15, 20, 30 miles an hour, even things that don't seem big can end up in injuries that require substantial treatment. And so, yes, I would tell the officer that I think I might be hurt. I need some help out here, and try to get as many witness statements as you can. If there's people on the scene, at least get their names. I tell people, turn your phone on record mode and put it in your pocket, because sometimes these people will just come out and say, "I'm so sorry, I didn't even see the light was red."
Yeah.
And bam, right there,
that's an admission.
Yeah, they just established liability for you. Yeah, and so you're not relying upon, "Well, I swear, insurance adjuster, he told me he was at fault," and now they've changed their story because you've made a claim. They're saying, "Well, no, I never said that. The light was fine to me." So that's one thing that I would say is very important, is get the officers out at the scene to make that report, so we've got something to utilize when we make that claim. And if it ends up in trial, again, that is witness number one, is the responding officer and what that report says. And so, again, it's extremely, extremely important.
And here's another little caveat. A lot of times they'll tell you it's going to take an hour and a half for the police to get out there. Wait.
Yeah. Stay at the scene.
Make the other person wait too. Wait for them to show, make their report. Reports are our best evidence in an auto accident.
Yeah. As far as what else to do after an accident, I always tell people, obviously, take as many pictures as you can. You can't have too many pictures. Just get your phone out and just take pictures of the scene. Get your car to a safe place if it's in the middle of an intersection.
Right. Don't just leave it in the middle.
Right. Yeah. But get as many pictures as you can, and then contact an attorney.
Okay.
Again, this is what we just talked about. Even if it's something to where we say, okay, after we've looked into it here in the last couple of weeks, we've ordered the report from Austin. There's not really anything that we can do, which is not very often. But if that turns out to be the case, you're not going to owe that attorney anything. If they're a reputable personal injury attorney and they're working on a contingency fee basis like everybody should be, it's not any risk to you to contact that attorney and find out, okay, what are my options? What do I need to do? One of the things that I always get a kick out of is the personal injury attorneys that make such a point on TV and radio to make it known that you pay us nothing. What's unique about our firm is that you owe us zero unless we recover for you. Honestly, that is the way that 99% of personal injury attorneys work.
Okay.
And so, and I see why they do it, because the public thinks, attorney, that's going to be expensive.
So
I don't have the money, Yeah. But any personal injury attorney that is operating ethically and really according to kind of how personal injury attorneys work, is going to be doing that same model. It's not going to be anything that you have to worry about being out financially. And then 3, I'd say, if you are hurt or believe you might be hurt, get to the doc.
Yeah.
That's so important. You don't want what the insurance company calls a gap in treatment.
Okay.
Where you've been in an accident and the insurance company says, well, the accident happened on the 21st and it was the 28th before they even went anywhere.
Right.
Because then we can always rebut that. Maybe they didn't have insurance, maybe they have the money, maybe they didn't realize they were hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't have to rebut, if we don't have to argue that, if we can say that same day or the next morning they went to the ER, they went to a care now, it can make it so much easier to establish the fact that yes, legitimately they are hurt. Then we get them in for an MRI and we find objective findings of injury, and
right.
it just kind of goes from there.
I know that Brent was also an insurance defense attorney, and that was like the bread and butter of insurance defense. Back in the day when I did insurance defense, if there was a gap in treatment, I was like, you can't say that you got hurt because of this car accident because there was so much time in between. We don't know what you were doing or where you were.
Yeah, that initial gap can be detrimental, fatal to your case.
Yeah.
So if it's more than a week, we're going to have to answer questions about it.
Uh-huh.
So we recommend everybody, you're in an accident, go to the ER. They can't refuse emergency treatment. Go to a care now the next day. They don't cost a whole lot. And then you can come to a personal injury attorney and we can help find you providers that can give you treatment without money up front. But that initial gap, when I did defense for over a decade, that's the first thing I looked at. Date of accident, first date of treatment. I want to know what that number is.
Yeah.
So that if you know that, we know that, we can combat at least their first defensive mechanism.
That's really good information. That's an excellent point, especially coming from somebody who did, trucking defense, because that was his job, is to,
Mm-hmm.
To be the attorney for these trucking companies when people are expecting big money on sometimes very, very serious accidents, and pay as little as possible. The one thing that I would add is, if you're not sure where to go, there are some of these 24-hour clinics out there that are billing. We've seen this in the last couple of years. They are billing outrageously. I'm talking $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 for one visit.
Oh my goodness.
One visit with an X-ray, they find out that there's an auto accident involved.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we've got a bill for an insane amount. I think we've had one over 100,000. And again, this is one visit. And these are around Denton. They're around DFW. I'm not going to say their name right now, but call us if you're not sure where to go, because there are places that we know do not do that. No place should do that. Yeah, but there are 2 or 3 locations. I think we've got definitely 2 and possibly a third one that once they find out that this is going to involve insurance money, it's going to involve an attorney, bam, their bill just it increases 100.
Same medical treatment at a higher rate.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, triple, quadruple a normal rate at a hospital. That's why I say go to the ER. Their bills are going to be larger than a care now, but they're more regulated. And we can post settlement work reductions with them.
Okay.
These other facilities are refusing to reduce by a significant amount, so it makes it extremely hard to settle your case.
So if someone's in an accident and they're hurt, that shouldn't stop them from getting medical treatment or medical care, right? That should be number one. You should ensure that you take care of your physical person and get the medical treatment you need.
Yes, absolutely. Go to the doctor. Go wherever you feel it. And I think his point about going to the ERs is a very, very good one, because yes, they are much more regulated. Like he said, they can't refuse you. At the very least, it's going to create that record of you going somewhere and making the complaint. And then you contact your attorney. Your attorneys will make sure and get you set up with the right providers that they know they have relationships with, and they know what these bills are going to be.
Right.
And so they know how to manage the treatment. They know what to expect when certain things are done. When we search for policy limits, because insurance companies will not tell you what the policy limits are. So we have third-party companies that report the policy limits to us. So when we're managing the treatment and making sure that our clients don't exceed the amount of any specific policy when they're treating, it's just very important to know what those bills are going to be. And that's what any good attorney is going to be doing, is keeping track of those records very diligently. I mean, really every couple of days at least, that file needs to be looked at. The client needs to be contacted at least once a week to get checkups as far as, okay, who have you seen? How's it working? How are you feeling? When's your next appointment? Just the general follow-up that's so important can really make or break some of these cases. And if they don't make or break them, they can certainly affect how much compensation, how much of a recovery you're going to get.